Welcome back. On the tariff front, the de minimis tax exemption, it ends today. The exemption allowed packages worth $800 or less to be shipped to the U.S. duty-free. In May, the White House closed this loophole for packages from China, and this affected online retailers like Shein and Temu, and now the exemption goes away for all countries. These smaller packages will now be subject to country-specific tariffs. So, for example, a business would see $50 in extra costs for a $200 package that comes from a country with a 25% tariff rate. Gifts and personal items, though, under $100, they will still be exempt. So a little bit of some good news there. Here now is BancAlliance President Lori Bettinger. Lori, thank you so much for joining us on 24/7 today. What impact will this have on consumers, especially those who tend to buy things from different stores in various countries? How will this affect them? Because I assume it's not just businesses that will be affected.
That's absolutely right. And I can tell you in my house, this is a big topic right now because we participate in a coffee club. And as you probably know, coffee is is a good that typically you can't find, made in the US, roasted. And we got a notice that that was going to stop, that the deliveries were going to stop because of the end of the de minimis exception. And as consumers, I think we've become, if we do online shopping at all, we've become really used to buying something without really thinking about where it's shipping from.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. Like you could just buy, let's say, a watch battery on a site like eBay, and it comes to you and you're like, oh, wow, this came from Europe or this came from Asia. And I think that is really going to change for consumers because now, as you mentioned, this de minimis threshold, it's really been changed. And we haven't always been like this. It was raised from $200 to $800 in 2016, and the volume of packages shipped just exploded. They've said that we get up to 4 million packages a day in this country under the de minimis exception, and so many of those are going to us as consumers. So I think when we go online, for some things, prices might be increased, or we've actually heard that a lot of foreign companies, for right now, they're not going to be shipping items to the US while they figure out this new regime.
And how do you see this affecting competition here in the US and in terms of the US market?
It's a good question. I think that for a lot of domestic manufacturers, this could really help them. I know that a couple of clothing manufacturers, for instance, that I follow closely, have really been speaking out against the de minimis exception because they've said that, letting items in under $800, that really puts them at a disadvantage, when they're trying to build up their businesses here in the US and they have factories here. But it's going to be interesting. I think for some of the larger companies that have really taken advantage of this exception and built supply chains where, for example, they ship a lot of items maybe to Mexico and then, one by one to consumers as they order them, they're probably going to be better positioned to move those distribution centers into the US. But for smaller companies abroad that, don't have the ability to set up a local distribution center, they might exit the market altogether. And I think that, US companies could take over because it's going to be much more cost effective to buy from someone who's just shipping domestically rather than someone who's now paying some of those duties and import fees that you mentioned earlier.
And Lori, I assume it's going to be more expensive though. Say, okay, prices go up for things we're buying from other countries and now we can buy them here in the US. I assume it will be more expensive to buy them here in the US than previously from other countries.
I think that could be the case. And, that's one of the arguments that a lot of domestic manufacturers have had is that they can't compete, from someone who has lower labor costs or lower other costs. So to your point, it might be, on a relative basis, it will be cheaper to buy from a domestic manufacturer, but you still might be paying more for that T-shirt or a backpack or, whatever that was previously being sent to you from overseas. Sometimes domestic manufacturers have higher costs, but you're still buying it, you're paying more than you were before. And now, hopefully that domestic manufacturer sees their sales rise. But as consumers, I think we could expect to pay more in certain categories.
All right, Lori Bettinger, thank you so much for joining us and helping us make sense of this. Appreciate your time today.